Hi, welcome to this explanation of the cutting board Model A and how I intend it to be used. Now the operating instructions for this are so simple. What I've done is I've taken elements of editing on film, elements of editing on videotape, elements of editing with nonlinear softwares, and I've made something that is intended to be so intuitive and easy to use that this should be all the real tuition that you need in using it. The first section is the find section, which is up here. The pink button goes to the find section. The white buttons allow you to navigate up and down to select different clips. In some programs they will load automatically. In other programs you will need to press the go button and that effectively loads them for playback. Okay, so that's the easiest to use method of navigating through a list of clips and loading up a clip. In order to play clips back, you need to first select what you want to play back. Do you want to play back the clip, which is the yellow button, or do you want to play back the edit? Okay, and you can hit either button to effectively switch between a clip that you've got loaded and the edit that you're creating. Okay, if you're playing back a clip, you can literally just use these three buttons here, and although I've intended them to be used with 3 fingers of one of your hands like this, they could be used in all sorts of ways. You could actually use your wrist with them, use your elbow, use just one finger, however you like. But essentially they're meant to do the same functions as JKL in all the main editing programs, whereby you can play forward, you can stop, and you can play backwards. Okay, you could also obviously go multiple speeds until you press to stop. You could also rock between playing forwards and backwards. Holding down the center one and tapping the ones either side allow you to go a frame at a time. And holding down the ones either side with the center one allows you to go in slow motion. Now, you may have noticed there's a slight color code here. The green buttons are used to play something back. Okay. Apart from maybe the go button, which is just used almost like as a traffic light to mean go, essentially. The blue buttons are used to get to exact frames. So stop is a blue button because then it holds you on that frame. Okay, like so. Having a look at the colours of the clip and the edit button, they use yellow and a kind of pale blue respectively. That's then themed throughout the rest of the board. So for example, these green areas here, so the green area under frames, the green area under view, because it's green, it can be applied to both yellow and blue, both clips or edits. The refine section, which we'll come to in a bit, for refining edit points is coloured blue. And that's because it applies only to the edit. Yeah. And you're reminded of which of these sections apply to clip and edit with these coloured arrows here for yellow and for blue. The left-hand side of the main area, which is like the view area in the middle, also coloured green, is for frames. And I've called it frames because it's about marking up specific frames. Okay, so I haven't necessarily used the same naming conventions that some of the softwares use. I've sort of come up with naming conventions that make sense for the way of working that I'm outlining here. Essentially, the orange buttons are orange because they are intended to make you think before you press them. Yeah, a bit like an amber traffic light. Think. Okay, it's not dangerous, but have a think. So you'd have a think before you press them, and they are to effectively mark an in point and mark an out point, respectively, or some programs call them mark a start point and an end point. Exactly the same thing. After you've marked that, the green button will literally preview the marked section. It will play into out. Okay. The blue buttons above allow you to go specifically to the in point and the out point if you want to check those frames. Now, obviously, you can navigate to a different frame and mark a new in point or new out point, and that will replace the previous in point, an out or out point. Or if you want to clear both of them, you could press the white circle button, which is clearing the in and out points. Okay. After you've set an in and out point, you can use either of these two main edit command function buttons up here. And you can see that there's a faint legend that sort of points to that from this box. So this is about marking up start and end frames. And these buttons are about what you want to do with those frames. And again, the kind of blue and yellow sort of color coding that aligns with clip and edit is used. The remove button is to literally delete or take out, or you could call it extract, you could call it ripple delete, or whatever you want, a section that's already been edited that you've marked up. So that applies only to the edit. Whereas commit, which is essentially the command to edit into the edit, or to commit the selection to the edit. That can be done regardless of whether you're in the clip or in the timeline, and it will edit into whatever the current location is, either the end of the edit if that's where you are, or at whatever frame that you're on. So you can actually use it to insert or splice in as well. But it's a single commit to edit button, and it's red because it's supposed to get you to just stop and have one last think before you go ahead and do it. So the color codes are almost used to help prompt your thinking process, which is integral to the way that this is designed. Okay. There's then one more set of features that works with the edit, and it works with the edit only because it's on a blue background, not a green background, and that's refine. You may know it as trim. Trim is I guess a function that you may apply to real film, or you may apply to certain software, but I've called it refine because it's about refining edit points, changing something that has already been edited. And there's a kind of faint red legend here that tells you that it's used in conjunction with this section of view. So this section of view allows you to literally go to the previous and edit points in your edit. Yeah. So effectively, you'll always be on an edit point if you use these buttons. In some programs, you need to press the triangle button, and I came up with the triangle symbol button just because it's a symbol that usually denotes some kind of mode change, or maybe just in science, maybe beyond, but it seemed to work for what I intended. So pressing that will get you ready to trim. You would then use the orange buttons to decide whether you want to trim the left side or the right side, i.e. the A side or the B side. And again, they're orange to make you think just a bit about what it is, which one you're pressing before you do it. And then you have the red trim buttons, which allow you to trim left and right one frame at a time, or multiple frames at a time if you hold them down. And obviously they're red, just like the commit to edit button, because you should really have thought through what you're going to do before you do it, so that you know exactly what it is you're trimming. Yeah, so it's almost, again, a prompt just to have an extra level of thought to it. And then you have a green button, which is play around current frame or play around edit point, but effectively it's used to preview the edit point that you're refining in whichever software you're using it with. These sets of three buttons in both the frames and the refine area, again, are kind of laid out operation with three fingers of one of your hands. So you could sort of operate it with two sets of three fingers if you want between, but you could also use it in a touchy-feely way with a single finger, or a hand, or a wrist, or an elbow, or a stick, or whatever, however you want to control it, essentially. Okay. So that's a little bit about how we use Cutting Board Model A. As you can see, it's really simple. Although it functions a bit like a control surface, it isn't intended to be a control surface. It is its own thing, designed to work in its own way, that I've kind of worked out ways that the various software programs can be grafted onto it using key controls so that it performs how it's supposed to. So yeah, it's intended to help you think through and use your thoughts and your mind and your intuition, your gut feeling, and all the rest of it in the editing process without distractions. And it's as simple as that.